Hi everyone, today I wanted to go over how to create a basic QA form for your contact center. So we have a form here that is kind of our generic form that we use for all of our clients when we're kind of onboarding. And then, we'll take their client specific data and kind of put this in here if they don't have a QA form, or if we like our form better, if they like our form better. So a couple things that we do with this is, one, we normally score on a 100-point scale. We do have certain clients that like a 1, 2, or 3, but we like to get a little bit more granular, so we like the 100-point scale. Normally a 90 and above is acceptable, 80 and below is a fail. So anywhere in that 80 to 90, those are going to go out to the floor. Obviously anything 80 and below, those are going to go out to the floor instantly. We, as you can see on this basic form, we have this set up in a database, but if you're a smaller center, you could very easily just do this with buttons of yes or no's, that's all they are, and then make a formula where it adds that into their score in an Excel spreadsheet. And that's kind of really how most of us have started. But anyway, so our form, we have our agent name, we have our in-contact ID, which is the barcode of the call, so we can pull it up and listen to it. Call type, whether it's live or recorded. Some of these will say inbound or outbound as well. And then my name or whoever the score is in QA. So these are kind of set up in 5 kind of headings, right? Or 5 different topics. One is the greeting, project knowledge, product knowledge, processes, procedures that we need to do on each call. This is our tone, is the message kind of area, right? With communication, professional conversation skills. If there's any type of selling, retention, cross-sell, upsell on the program, and then our close, and then our auto fails, which we'll talk about here in a second. So I want to go through each of these. Most of these should make sense to you. Some of these won't have really anything to do with your specific type of call or program, but I think for most of these, this will correlate well with your call center. So the first thing is we have a greeting. We're looking that the associate was ready and available to assist. They were focused on the call. They weren't talking to their neighbor. They used whatever the client has for their proper greeting. There's a willingness in their voice to assist. We're not just, if somebody wants to cancel, just saying, okay, sounds good, and moving on. We've kind of have an affinity statement or a program overview. A lot of times we'll have that, why they're calling, give a little bit more detail on the client. And that's for a sales, and on a service call, that's where we'd be kind of listening a little bit more to the customer. And then we get to product knowledge, right? So a lot of times here, we'll be looking for verification information right after that greeting. Then we're going to try to verify, make sure all the information's right. So we're making sure that the customer's information is proper, that we've updated if we need to, that everything is accurate, that when we put it into the system or into the CRM, we're huge on tone. And you guys know I am too. So the tone is the message. So we're not using any jargon or any kind of, like you're talking to your friend at home. We're using professional tones that correlates to the client, right? So if whatever your culture is, that's kind of the tone or the way you want to be talking. We want to record any memos, right? That's a big deal, right? So what happened on the call? What's the client's procedure? Is it Salesforce where we can auto memo, or are we actually typing memos in? And that there's a call flow, and if we're following it. And then again, this is kind of your system. Notice, what to click, where to click. That's one thing for 4 points. A lot of you guys are focused on that. We're focused more on tone, how you're talking to the customer, what is the kind of the sentiment of the call. And because of that, we have a whole section on that, which I think really make sure that your QA form has and really focuses on this. If you want really high-end customer support, score your reps on what you want them to really focus on. So was the tone, was it warm and genuine throughout the call? Were we acknowledging statements, kind of showing concern? Diminishing, you don't want to talk down on another department, right? Like, oh yeah, we hear that all the time. Like you don't want to do that, right? We're not talking over the customer. This is important, and a lot of you maybe don't think about this, but the pace of the call needs to match the customer. And I'm gonna use bad stereotypes here, so please don't email me, but like, let's hypothetically say there's somebody in New York City who's like a city guy who just wants this question answered, right? We're not going to go into a long, drawn out, hey, how you doing, Mr. Smith? He just wants that. So the tone should correlate to what he's looking for. If there's someone, maybe they're a little bit older, maybe they're on an island, right? I don't like to use that excuse. They're just chilling on an island. It's a little bit slower for them. Then let's match the tone that we feel from the customer to that call. And we actually score that in each of these calls, making sure we train that. We're not engaging in with any distracting mannerisms, like, maybe a condescending or anything like that, right? Expressing empathy where it needs to happen. Every customer is different on how we address the customer. Most of that is Mr., Mrs., Sir, Ma'am. But there's some, little progressive companies that maybe have some younger people that we're calling first names. It's rare, but it does happen. So are we using their name appropriately? And then again, you don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be kind of bullying the call, but you still need to have ownership of the call. And you need to be able to dictate, what the customer needs, where you need to go with it, how you can fix it in the best route for that customer. You don't want the customer just kind of dictating, going all over the place. And I think we all understand that, but that's a huge piece. That's why it's a 5-pointer too. Sounded confident, and that goes with taking ownership. Controlled the call. We're actively listening. We don't want any dead air, whether that's on the call or even when we're on hold, if we have to put somebody on hold. If there is any escalation, that the call went well, and it wasn't really our quote-unquote rep's fault that it got escalated, but it was the customer who really wanted to talk to somebody else. And then, again, the proper hold and transfer procedures is big in almost all call centers, so make sure you're scoring that. Most call centers now have some type of cross-sell, upsell, retention model, right? So we're making the certain appropriate amount of steps to retain and convert in MOP, which is a method of payment. We're using open-ending probing questions, not yes or no questions. Everybody's kind of trained on that. And then if there's a downsell, we're appropriate. We're not trying to go right to the downsell, right? You're trying to do that if it's appropriate with the effective rebuttals and using an assumptive close. An assumptive close, that can be different for each client, but as a rule, that's kind of how we would do that on a sales call. All right, and then in the closing, we're going to summarize the call, make sure that the customer feels confident in the end result. It might not be the one that they want, but it's the one that that they think was fair, right? And they understand why it happened. We tried to confirm if there's a cancel. We're offering additional assistance. Is there anything else I can help you with, Mr. Smith? And then we close the call positively from our end. So if you add up all of these, and I'm not going to do that for you, but if you add them up all, it's 100 points. So on a 100-point scale, that's a perfect call, right? We have very few perfect calls. But again, we're trying to get, for most of these on average, 85 to 90 or above. And we like to say 90 and above. Anything below 80 is kind of a fail for us, and that's going to go out to the floor. Now, every client's a little different. Your call center is going to be a little different on what you guys value, but that's kind of the gist of the general scoring. We then have auto fails, right? So you could have the greatest call, you're the nicest ever on it, but if you don't do certain things on every single call, it doesn't matter, because it's either some type of legality, some type of disclosure, something that you need to do for sure on every single call, and if you don't, it's automatically going out to the floor, and it's kind of a big deal. One is, we didn't properly authenticate you, right? That's bad. So we need to make sure that we're going through all those procedures of understanding this is the proper person on the call. If we didn't even attempt to sell, right, that's our method of payment on some type of sales call. We just blew it off totally. We didn't make an attempt to retain the customer, which is an issue. We refuse to process a cancellation, which I don't know why we would do, but if there's a rep that's really focused on the retention numbers and they blow the customer off and just won't do it, that's an issue. Call avoidance, right? So calls are ringing, they're not picking it up, or if they just they're ditching calls, right? Obviously that's an auto fail when we catch that. And then if you're unprofessional, again, the tone is the message. Everything could be perfect. Customer even could be happy at the end of the call, but if your tone is negative, if you're rude, if you're defensive, if you're any type of condescending tone, auto fail, getting pulled, and we're going to try to fix that right away, or you can't be here. And then obviously using the disclosures appropriately. So you can see that no matter what, these are all 40-point docs, right? So you're in a 100-point call, you're going to a 60, which is going to kill your QA and kill your score for the week, but you can't do these kind of things. So we then just have a basic comment section. So the QA rep will then put kind of what they heard. Rep answered the phone appropriately, kind of go through it real basic in a kind of a quick form, Cliff Note version. And then if anything that needs to come back, I like to keep it here. We have a whole nother way to respond to these in Slack. but I like to have the supervisor respond here in the comment section as well on what QA or what training was done as well. And then we kind of add that to some other places too. But for me, I can just go in, look at everybody's QA for the day, see what reps are doing what, read the comments really quick, find out why the score was there, and we're in a pretty good place. So again, guys, that's a real basic QA form, something that I think covers all the bases. It's going to get you where you need to be. If you don't have anything set up, I would just copy and paste this or put this in Excel today. If you'd like to get this actual form, I can send it to you. Shoot me an email, DM me on LinkedIn, or on Twitter, and I'll even send this to you. But I hope this is helpful. I hope this improves your quality in your contact center, and I think it really is doing kind of QA the right way.